What's up guys, welcome to another video. Today on this video we're actually going to start a new build on the channel. So collectively but separately, me and Rex have just had atrocious days as far as the business goes. I've been chasing issues with ECUs and stuff all day to no avail. Rex chasing out suppliers and freight companies looking for parts that have never shown up, they've been waiting for ages. No one can give us an answer on where they actually are, and it's just been an absolute shambles of a day. So we've decided we're actually going to start something for ourselves tonight, just to make something of the day so it wasn't a complete waste, and so we'll take you with us. Righto guys, so those of you who have been around on the channel for quite a while will probably recognise my two S13 shells sitting here in the dirt with nothing really attached. They're very bare at this point. So story goes, a long time ago I had these two S13s. They were both RB25 swapped. It got just to the point where it was not worth sort of fixing them. The sunroof one here is very twisted. It's pretty much a bin shell or a spare parts shell. I pretty much just kept it for a sunroof cut as well as quarter cuts if we ever want them. But apart from that, that shell is pretty much a toss away. The shell here that's in primer at the moment though, it is actually not too bad. The front's a little bit twisted, but as far as the actual shell goes, it's pretty straight. So I had plans originally, I've talked about it on the channel before, to do a aspirated barra swap in one, just to have a nice reliable barra swap. You know, RB Factory, this guy here, he makes a lot of parts for doing barra swaps and these sort of things, and I really wanted to help him out and try and get his products out there. And you know, I've got barras sitting around, and I had these sitting here, and I figured it was a good way to just make use of what I've got, help a few other people and build a cool car in the process. However, I don't particularly have a need to own a aspirated barra S13. You know, it'd be a cool car to build in that, but at the end of the day, I don't particularly need it. So after me and Rex sold our drift cars to buy the dyno, we decided we'd build another 31 out of the 31 parts we had lying around, because it was a nice, cheap, easy way to get into another drift car real quick. And we originally actually picked up this E46 Compact. And the original plan was to do this into another aspirated LS drift base for Rex to have a drift car as well, so that we could both have nice, you know, well set up aspirated LS reliable sort of drift cars. The problem we found with the E46 here is that the compact rear end is not very strong. Not only that, they're actually a completely different rear end and floor pan to the regular 3 Series, so you can't even swap in like a medium case or anything like that without doing a lot of work. So it just got to the point where it was like, we're going to have to do a lot of work to get this thing to the point where it would handle the sort of power we want to make out of a drift car in it, or we just
set up the front end too.
It got to the point where it's not really even worth it. And I sort of just decided that instead of build a aspirated barra S13 for no real particular reason apart from to use up the stuff, we may as well build the S13 for Rex instead. So that way at the end of it, we'll have the LS R31 and the LS S13. Me and Rex aren't too worried about, you know, who drives which. We'll probably just switch between them or whatever, but the fact is we'll have two nicely set up, reliable aspirated drift cars, so they shouldn't really be very problematic at all. Not to mention they're both very easy to set up. There's a lot of aftermarket support for both chassis, and you know, it's just the best way to have two nice cheap drift cars where we can go and rub some doors and trade some paint and have some fun. So the plan is another NA LS drift car. I know a lot of you are probably getting tired of the NA LS builds, but the fact is we're not building these cars to please anyone. We're literally building these cars so that we have some nice, cheap, reliable drift cars with some decent power. It's just for seat time. We just want to drive. It's pretty much what it is. We really just want to drive. Alright, so for this video is pretty much part one, is we don't really have the space or anything up there at the moment to actually drag the shell up there and start on much else. But being the S13, as a lot of you guys know, they're very modular in that you can actually, you know, build the entire rear end into the cradle and pretty much bolt it straight into the car. So what we're starting with today is we're going to start, well tonight I should say, is we're going to start with the rear end of the car setup and go from there. So we've picked the better rear cradle out of the two, and we're going to start with that. This is the engine crossmember we will be using. I'm pretty sure it's a C32 Lorel or an R33 crossmember. I'm not too sure, but obviously they were RB'd, so it's an RB crossmember. But yeah, we'll be using that for our LS as well. So it's just lucky after the part out of parting these cars out, I still kept enough to really build a decent one back together. Not only that, is since we decided we were going to go ahead with this, we've actually been keeping our eye out and picking up little parts as we go to get this thing built. So it should be another one of those cars that we should be able to get together pretty quick, and yeah, it shouldn't drag on. It should be pretty good. So as far as the R31 goes at the moment, sort of at a stalemate until I meet up with Arvin at RB Factory there and get some stuff off him that he's sorted out for us. So Arvin's been a massive help with the R31 build, which has been absolutely epic. And pretty much that's why this build has been able to go ahead, is because a lot of the things that I had earmarked to get the R31 built, Arvin is now supplying me, so that I've got a bit more of an aggressive setup. So, you know, a lot of this stuff is pretty much leftover stuff that I was sort of hoarding for when that build went ahead. So I figured now we've got it, we can make this S13 happen and we can still build a nice, cool car. You know, it would be awesome to still run Arvin's front end in this car, but, you know, he's already done so much for us, I don't want to keep asking for stuff. So anyway, I'll take you a quick run through what the plan is. So what we've collected here is the best rear cradle out of the two that I had, the better looking one, the better bushes in it. We've got here is actually, so here we have a 6-bolt Sylvia diff. We had planned to just weld this up and use this, but it is actually a CA auto diff, so it's a 4:3 ratio, which for what we want to do with this car is a little bit savage. It's not, we'll run out of legs too quick. So what we actually have is locally here, we have a guy down the road who actually is the guy that started Option 1 Garage, and he has a lot of JDM Sylvia Skylines parts and stuff, and he was doing a bit of a clean out the other week. We managed to go there and snag heaps of good stuff for this build, which was awesome. So we grabbed ourselves a ABS diff out of a Stagia. As far as it being ABS doesn't particularly bother us because we have to get a tail shaft made anyway. So it doesn't really matter to us that it's an ABS diff. We'll just piss off these sensors, they can go for a hike. But it's a 408. Is it, Rex?
Yeah, 408 or something.
408. So it's still not exactly what sort of ratio we'd be looking for. Both this diff and the diff that ended up in the Skyline both ended up a little bit not quite the ratios we want. We sort of were hoping for that 3.9, 3.7 to 3.9-ish. Once we start going into the 4:1 ratio, it starts to get a bit savage. But nonetheless, not only is it a little bit better ratio, but we've got our 5-bolt diff, which is stronger again. So we got this. Rex has actually already welded this up, ready to go. So the diff has been welded, but as you know, to bolt it into the S13 cradle, we need the S13 top out off the S13 diff. So that's why that's come up here. So we'll pull the top out off that diff. We'll get it onto this diff so it can go into the S13 cradle. Along with this diff, we actually bought pretty much the whole rear end from that. It came out of a Stagia. So we've got our 5-bolt half shafts, as well as our Stagia rear end, which is pretty much the same as an R33. So we've got the good R33 drum handbrake setup, as well as 5-stud on the rear and nice big brakes to run on this car, which is awesome. So that's really great. So the Stagia and the R33 rear ends, the arms are a little bit wider because the rear ends are wider. So as you guys know, when you start lowering S13s and IRS cars, you start to run into camber issues. So I figured we'd probably use the S13 lower control arms because they're a little bit narrower, which will help bring the whole rear end back in closer to the diff so that the drive shafts or the half shafts aren't pulled out of the diff too much. What I actually found though when I started looking for these arms down in the shed was that I hadn't realized, but I actually still have 2 adjustable camber arms for the rear end of a Sylvia. Where did you put them, Rex? Alright, sorry guys, I actually realized I left them down in the shed, so I had to go get them. But I did keep, I thought I sold all of the adjustable arms when I parted out both my Sylvias, but I actually apparently did keep a pair of upper adjustable camber arms for S13. So this is going to help us out heaps. I have no idea what brand these are, if they're any good or whatever, but we're sort of just trying to do this build with what we got and try and keep it cheap. So it's just going to be a matter of hopefully using the S13 lower control arms in the rear end. We can sort of get our camber sorted out with these as well. The problem is if you use the big ones and then use these to wind the camber out once you drop it, is you start trying to pull the half shafts out of the diff, and you know the CVs in the half shaft starts to get pretty unhappy when you start doing that. So it's about keeping that happy medium where the half shafts and and everything is pretty happy with not being trying to be pulled out of the diff. So between all the Stagia arms and all the S13 arms, I'm hoping we can sort of make it all work together. So that's pretty much the plan for tonight, to try and save this day, is sort of, you know, do something for ourselves so we can have a few quiet beers and just tick along with something, one of our own builds. So I did want to sort of do a bit more filming with the actual shell down there, but we've run out of daylight. It's just going to be sort of trying to get this rear end together somewhat. So as you can see, we've also got the Stagia rear sway bar. So all this together should be a nice sort of simple setup for the S13 there, and just try and adapt the cable, the drum cable handbrake out of the 33 equivalent, which we all know is great for drifting. So try and adapt that to the S13 and just try and keep it as another one of those nice, simple, reliable drift cars. So as far as the front end is concerned, when we managed to score all this stuff from our mate for the rear end, he actually had there another set of S13 knuckles, some stock ones, which is good because they are actually the knuckles that I'm sending to Arvin so that he can modify for the 31. So these are the knuckles I actually had picked out for the 31 before Arbin sort of came on board with us, and they're just another set of modified cut and shut knuckles. I'm actually not sure who made these or what they are, but they are, you know, quite short. They are going to be good locks, so they're a good place to start. And once again, we've got them. So they're the knuckles we're planning on using. Who we got all this stuff off, he actually had a set of adjustable caster arms there as well, so we bought them too, which was absolutely epic. So we've got adjustable caster for the front. Also got this set of lower control arms. Once again, I had these picked out for the R31, but I don't need them for that build anymore. So these are actually nice 525mm extended LCAs. So, you know, we've got adjustable caster, modified knuckles, extended LCAs for the front end, which is, you know, ideal as far as the front end of an S13 goes. Not only that, again, when we got this stuff and we got those nice big rear brakes, we actually got ourselves another set of R33 front brakes. So I've actually already got a set for the 31 there, for the LS31, so it's going to be running R33 brakes as well. However, I've got rotors that have been re-drilled to suit 4-stud, but the brakes that we picked up when we picked this stuff up were actually just simply a set of 5-stud R33 brakes. So one of my good friends, Aaron Fern, who actually owns a R31 by the name of SIQ31, SIQ31. A lot of R31ers, like in the community in Queensland, probably know of him. He has a pretty staunch R31 there. So he actually chucked up for sale the other day by chance. He had a set of GK Tech 5-stud adapter hubs for S13 knuckles and splines. Came with studs. So we snapped them up off him. So pretty much we're going to be running the modified S13 knuckles, 5-stud hubs from GK Tech with R33 brakes at the front, and then we've got pretty much our full R33 rear end that we've got to make work to suit the Silvia. So as you can see, it should be a pretty decent setup with a decent amount of lock. I've still got both steering racks out of them cars down in the shed there. Might have to rebuild one to get out of that, but we've got a steering rack there. And with 25mm extended LCAs and these knuckles, we should be able to use Nissan Maxima rack ends and tie rod ends. Oh, S13 tie rod ends, but Nissan Maxima rack ends to make that setup work. So that, along with probably just another set of cheap coilovers for now. Once again, same deal as the 31, where we're not quite sure what spring rates we're sort of going to want with this setup, the way it's going to weigh. And as I've said to you guys, you know, suspension setup and steering setup as far as a drift car goes is something that we need a lot more experience in before we know exactly how to set a car up. So we're not looking to go spend heaps of money on a set of coilovers for this car, same reason for the 31, whereas we don't know exactly what to buy. So probably just another set of cheap coilovers for now, just to get this car rolling so we can get driving and hopefully start driving with a few people that know a bit more about setting up a car, and we can get a few more pointers as to where we want to head in future as far as getting some decent suspension in it. But at the very least, the bare bones, everything is here, and it should be a really nice setup car with a lot of stuff that we've already got here. So just to quickly top off the plans while I've been talking about it, as far as the driveline of the car goes, it is just going to be another aspirated LS combination with another 6-speed T56 gearbox. We've got actually a really nice set of Higgins ported 243 cathedral port heads for an LS. Currently the block that we're going to be using is at the machine shop because it was a block that had dropped a valve and split a piston and cracked a bore. So we're getting that bore re-sleeved so that we can reuse that block. So we're getting out of that quite cheap. And then we're using a Gen 4 rodded rotating assembly. So it'd just be a 5.7 LS Gen 4 rodded rotating assembly with good ported 243 heads and a monstrous cam. And once again, this car, much like the 31, we're sort of hoping to sort of see that 400, just under 450 horsepower out of this thing. So that's where I want the 31 to end up eventually. At the moment, I'm sort of just hoping for 400 in that thing. But for this car, with the ported heads and everything that's already going into it, yeah, we're hoping for sort of that around that 440 maybe-ish. So both of them will be really nicely set up drift cars, and both of them should be nice and reliable. Like I said, we're not building them to please anyone. We are building these for seat time. We just want to drive. So apologies for anyone who hates LS swaps or LS drift cars, but I don't really care. Problem number one, I was severely misled. I was under the impression that you could actually just put the Silvia diff top hat onto the other diff and then it would bolt up to the cradle. But as you can see, these diffs are wildly different. This is a much bigger diff in literally every way. So yeah, well, there's that. So anyway, being this is a drift car and we don't really care, we've measured it up every other way. It seems to be pretty much the same distance to the mounts and everything else. It's going to be okay there. That should all be sweet. So what we're going to do is pretty much take some measurements of these two posts in relation to what these are, and we are just going to drill out this to suit the new diff.
And this is why we love building track-only cars that don't have to go on the road, because you can just do this.
It's pretty good to actually see how much bigger that diff is. Like, that is obviously going to be a much stronger unit. So pretty glad that we picked up all this stuff. It was a really good score for the price. Alright, so we just had to clearance a little bit of the subframe here so that we can actually fit our little bung hole. That's going to be really hard to fill that bung her. Hard to fill my bung her.
Good to bung her. We don't have to do that very often though. So
no, I shouldn't do. And yeah, so we just drilled new holes, everything lines up pretty well. We thought about trying to weld on some strap on the front side or something just to strengthen it up, but we figured it's a bridge that we'll just cross when we come to it. You know, if we find we're having issues with it trying to turn out or pull the nuts out or something, or damaging or twisting that, we'll sort it out then. But for now, we reckon just them holes drilled should be sweet. But yeah, that's our stager diff mounted up in the cross member. So
mounted up in there, bitch.
Or not in the cross member, sorry, in the cradle, I should say. And from here on, we'll just keep seeing what we've got as far as mounting everything up together. Alright, so we had a bit of a look at the lower control arms between the Stager and the S13, and they actually look to be the same width. So
that
my
length there is exactly
the same. So my initial understanding was that the S13 might have been narrower, which would help us out, but after looking at it, we thought, hey, we'll just chuck the R33 or Stager one in, because it actually looks like it's fairly stronger. It's actually got a bit more material in it. But what we actually found was that the actual width of these bushes are different between the two, which is the difference. So you can see I wanted this one because it's got a lot more material in here. There's actually a lot more material in the arm, but they don't fit.
It does not fit in there, whereas the S13
one do. So it has to be changed. It doesn't particularly matter. At least the ones, the actual ball joints on this lower control arms for the S13 ones I've got are actually pretty good. So we're pretty happy. Again, it's our car. We're sort of trying to do it with what we've got. We want to try and limit everything we want to buy. So yeah, we got to change the S13 ones anyway, but they're actually no narrower, so it's not going to help our issue there at all. So again, we'll just keep going with mocking everything up. Hopefully it's all good. This diff still has to come out of this cradle anyway, because we haven't actually sealed the top hat yet since Rex actually welded it up. So we'll just keep going mocking everything up. But
this whole thing's just a big old dummy.
Big old dummy fit.
Dummy up.
Anyway, Gelfie's here. Brought her and Lil Man out for the week.
Chelsea Gelfie.
She's not saying much.
I'm completely out of it. I didn't hear a single word you just said.
It's been a big day. Little Man didn't want to settle. It's been, on all accounts, between me and Rex separately, and then also us with the young fella, it's been a hard day. So if we can get this sort of dummy fitted together where it's actually going to work, I'll be stoked, because it means we actually did achieve something today.
Top of the nut must be nailed over a bit, and it's just turning the ball joint.
Oh, that old chestnut.
That old chestnut.
It's probably because whoever removed them just beat the shit out of the top of them with a hammer.
That do happen on occasion.
Yeah, I don't know who that was, but...
No idea.
Righto guys, so it's been a little bit of messing around, but we have got there. And we do have a bit of a rear end dummied up together. So yeah, it's a bit of a Frankenstein of what we've done. So yeah, obviously the drilled in rear for the diff, but the diff has mounted up pretty well. We've used the S13. I don't even know what these bottom arms are called. I don't even know what you call it. I'm pretty sure these are toe arms. These are camber arms. Your lower control arms. As for these ones, I don't even know. Maybe they're toe. But if they're toe arms, what are they? Again, like I was saying, I'm not completely privy as far as suspension setup goes.
They would be your toe arms because they're the adjustable.
Yep.
So they'll actually tow it. That's just a pivot point.
Yeah.
They're not adjustable.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, we tried the adjustable upper camber arms, I suppose you'd say, in here, but the ones I've got, I don't have the spaces for the rose joints on this end, so they don't quite fit properly. And as we talked about already, it's not like you can just adjust your camber and have it not be affected by the toe and everything else. So it's one of those things. I reckon what we've decided to do is just try run the stock stuff. As you all know, the stock stuff does have adjustment in the bolt end. They do have what do you call offset sort of adjustment in the bolts. Same with the toe. So because with this car, similar to the 31, we're not planning to run it really low. We want it to be serviceable, easy to work on, reliable. You know, it's not going to be absolutely slammed. We'd rather run big aero and big wheels and have it at a reasonable height so that it's easier to you know, service and work on. So we're hoping we can get this in the car and maybe get away with the stock stuff, but we're not going to know until it's in the car. So for now, we've dummied up the stock stuff in there. We'll get it in the car with some coilovers. We'll get it set to a height and we'll have a look and see if we need to go the adjustable arm route. If that is the case, I reckon we'll probably just buy a whole new set of adjustable arms for the rear instead of just trying to run whatever the hell those even are. I haven't even tried to adjust them. They could be seized for all I know, but it is what it is. So anyway, these arms are S13. The lower control arms are S13. These are out of the stager. These are out of the stager. Obviously the stager knuckles and then the 5-bolt and the diff and everything else. So that's pretty much where we've ended up at. And it's looking pretty good, honestly. It's all looking pretty good. I've also got these, out of one of them Sylvias, I had these collars. To my knowledge, they're just like a set of collars that you put on the actual subframe mount to the car. And I'm pretty sure they're essentially meant to make it so it's pretty much a solid mount. So I've got them there to run anyway. We'll chuck them in and see if they work when we go to put the car together. But at the very least, we do have a rear end dummied up. And it's all looking pretty good. The Stagia sway bar is a little bit too wide. Doesn't quite work, particularly with obviously the Sylvia cradle plus the Sylvia lower control arms. It's a bit wide. So I will have the Sylvia sway bars down there. I'm pretty sure I got literally like 3 or 4 of them. So I just have to go fish one of them out tomorrow. But with the Sylvia sway bar, that's pretty much the rear end setup. Oh, more presents. Righto guys, so that's about where we're going to leave it for tonight. It's getting a bit late, so we'll probably head to bed now. But tomorrow hopefully we'll get some time to spend a little bit more sort of time on this setup, getting it sorted. I dragged up the cross member. I actually did end up going down and dragging it up. So we've got the caster arms, lower control arms, the knuckles, and the cross member pretty much sorted. I found one of the mounts for the rack. I've got to find another rack mount. Got to try and find a rear sway bar. I had to look for another rear sway bar. I was down there getting this, but I couldn't find one. I found a heap of fronts, but I couldn't find an S13 rear. But I know I'll have some down there. I just got to go have a look in the daylight tomorrow. But yeah, it's all making some good progress. So like I said, we're probably going to want to rebuild one of them racks, but we do have 2. So we're going to chuck one in for now to get it rolling and leave one out to rebuild. But this is pretty much the start of the S13 build. So pick this up in the morning. Hopefully we'll get some time. Righto guys, next morning we are getting somewhere with this S13, which is really exciting. It's awesome. So Rex just ripped off into town. He's going to get some diff oil so that when he comes back we can actually pull this diff back out, seal it up properly, and then we can actually fill it up. We can actually bolt this rear end together and it can be bolted together. Decided not to bother painting or prettying up the rear end much. It shouldn't be really anything you're going to see in the car anyway. And truth be told, it's not actually that bad. So, what do you reckon, buddy? S13 or R31? Huh? Oh, okay. All right. So I just had to duck out and do some shopping. So I was out. Rex actually sealed up the top hat and filled it with oil. So we're ready to actually bolt this sucker end together and it can be ready to go in the car, which we'll actually try and get up here soon.
I ain't even gonna paint that black.
Leave it silver.
Yep.
Alright, so we've got a pretty much full rear end that's mostly actually bolted together. How exciting. Not bad. Very good. So, yeah, I cannot find either of my Sylvia sway bars. I have no freaking idea where they are. I found 3 fronts, no rears. I've checked everywhere, so I have to try and get a S13 rear sway bar to use. But anyway, you can go on any time because it goes on the bottom, so that's cool, whatever. But this is cool. Still got to paint this. Found some shocks that'll actually work to get the car rolling at least as well, until we get some suspension for it. Righto guys, so I cleaned up the front cross member. I've decided we're not going to paint it just yet. What we're going to do is just paint it in the car when we paint the engine bay. Saves screwing around painting it at the moment. At the end of the day, we're going to paint the engine bay anyway after we cut the guards out and do everything else we want to do, so it's not a massive advantage to go paint that now. It's just sort of time we don't need to spend. So anyway, rear end's sorted, ready to go in the car, and we are making some progress. So that's going to be it for this episode. So tune in for the next episode of this car, where we're going to actually be starting to get this stuff into the shell to try and get it rolling. So thanks for watching guys, as always. I appreciate everyone who watches. Smash like, smash subscribe, head to the store, grab yourself a shirt or a sticker or something. Helps us a long way. You get something cool out of it. Yeah, big thanks guys. Peace out, see you, bye.